Philadelphia. Hello, everybody. It is a very special Liquid Death Day because, Vince Quinn brought in. Well, we'll tell you about it later, but definitely. Listen to the sip, stay for the takes. The beautiful Vince Quinn is here with us. Taylor Cordatis, as always, back at Sandbox Studios, where throat's feeling a little better. Liquid Death is helping that. LiquidDeath.com/Bell, as always, to help out the podcast, and, of course, them as well to get free shipping on every case you order. Vince Quinn, how are you, sir?
Well, John.
What's up, buddy? Oh, God, the berry does. I haven't tasted the berry in a long time. That's really good.
It tastes like victory, John. It tastes like 1-0. It tastes like 1-0 against a dog shit franchise that gave
Certainly
everything
does.
they had. Now, credit the Detroit Lions. They gave everything they had in that game. They really did play that like it was their Super Bowl, but they suck and they don't have enough talent, and ultimately they still lost, even though we didn't play a good game. So
Much like Vince Quinn, which you will see in the race on YouTube. If you're already subscribed to YouTube, you'll see that.
I'm gonna kick your ass. All right, you talk all the smack you want.
I am going to talk some smack tonight, especially to the defense, and I think it's just, everybody knows that this is coming because you and I have watched the game more than a handful of times and had the unique perspective of seeing it live in Detroit, so thank you again. Vince from Philly Sports Trip still can't get over the time that we had.
So cool.
I'm going to bury Jonathan Gannon. I'm also going to bury Howie Roseman a tiny bit in this, which I don't think you expected, and there are a plethora of questions that I have in terms of an identity crisis. And I know that there are a lot of people this week that have focused on Jalen Hurts and the reads and, some of that stuff with the middle of the field and all the boring stuff after he just fucking, crushes it with A.J. Brown. No big deal, just ignoring that part of the game. But in your mind, we both agree the identity crisis lies with the defense, not the offense right now. Yes?
Yeah, having been able to rewatch it, I have an idea of what the offense is trying to do. And I think for them, it's kind of like, tadpole grows a couple of hind legs, then some front legs, and it loses the tail. Like, we're just in the tadpole phase, but I think I know where it's trying to be. I don't know what the fuck the defense is. I have no idea. And I was let me tell you, John, the defense is going to be the best unit. Everything's changed.
Right out of the gate.
They're doing this 3-4 thing. We're going to see 5 guys on the line all the time, which was not the case. It changed constantly.
Yeah.
And I think is a major problem. I mean, they're trying to do so many things at once that I don't think they're good at anything right now.
Yeah, I would agree. Like, it's almost they're scared to commit in any which way so they don't make mistakes, and that's why they make mistakes. And one thing I got to get off my chest because I've seen it all day. All day. Thanks a lot, PFF. It's just like this automatic check of, like, I know why the Eagles' defense is bad. They're 32-32 in missed tackles in week 1. And if you can't tackle, how good of a defense can you be? And there's going to be some Iron Man bullshit takes that come out for the next 3 days because of that.
Yep.
It's exhausting. They're missing tackles because their defensive coordinator is not setting them up at all. At all. And it's just like I get madder and madder every time that I've rewatched that game, which is about 3 or 4 times specifically just for the defense, by the way, because it's just I don't know if they're being smart. I don't know if they're being stupid. And to your point, this is like I feel the identity of Jonathan Gannon is exactly this: a car salesman or the dude who put on the Fry Festival. Like, it is Fire Festival. That's what it is.
Oh, my God.
It's that level of convincing because look at what happened in back-to-back off seasons. The first off season, Jonathan Gannon came out here and wowed us. They said, wow, look at this guy. He commands the room. He's so smart. He's like Brandon Staley, except maybe he's a little better or his own identity or whatever it is. And then we saw what he did, and we went, oof. And then they got new pieces and all this other different stuff. And we took an entire offseason to be like, oh, my God, this is going to change. And they're shifting. And I was dumb enough to say Jonathan Gannon won the locker room challenge or whatever it is. It's his show. It's on his sword. He got all the power. They're going to do what they do. And that is not what happened at all. Again, the second offseason in a row where we feel this guy is going to, finally, like, learn more about what he does. Same shit. And I think I know the problem. And it's not missed tackles. Are you ready for this? And
Sure.
I'm so sorry to say this because I just can feel the tension in the room. The problem with this defense right now is Fletcher Cox still. I have tried to convince myself. I go, no, you're not seeing this right. And I would love your opinion on this, Vince. Taylor, if you have any takes on it, feel free. Jump in the Discord, 215-509-5833, if you feel differently about this. It's still centered around him. It's a GM paying this guy $14 million, and it's completely disrupting the flow. All of the questions about why isn't Jordan Davis getting more snaps, or is that going to improve as he earned more than the 22 that he got, or whatever the question was. And the answer is no for a couple of different reasons. One, I don't think Jordan Davis is comfortable, nor Nakobe Dean is comfortable in learning whatever the hell Jonathan Gannon is trying to throw at them. I would feel so bad if I was one of them. So they're going to stick to their skill sets and what they were really good at in college. You're dragging this fucking 4-3 over to whatever it is, unders 5-1. We didn't even see five linemen down with their hands in the ground at all, if I remember correctly in that Detroit game, maybe a handful of times.
Not much. If they did it, yeah, they sent 5 occasionally, but not enough.
So I don't know if you remember this, but my biggest concern from the offseason with Reddick was, one, it's your only big pass rusher. We talked a little bit about in the postgame, and then it just shows up so bad in game 1. You're trying to cater to Fletcher Cox so much that it neutralizes why you signed Reddick in the first place. He needs guys to clear space and for the flow to end up into the linebackers. And Fletcher Cox is not a guy that is going to sit and anchor like Jordan Davis, and we keep yelling, why are they flying through? Why was DeAndre Swift so successful? Because Fletcher Cox, I said the same thing for a couple of years. I go kill the quarterback. I am not. You're not teaching an old dog new tricks. You just aren't going to do that. And so until that problem is solved, until there is you tell me, Vince Quinn, Fletcher Cox is the best part and worst part about this defense, because he is the only internal guy right now after week 1 that has gotten pass rushing pressure. You don't trust your first round rookie to do it. And now you're sticking Reddick into a goddamn wall so he's exhausted, and you're neutralizing every part of his athletic God-given talent to go kill the quarterback, which is why he had 13 sacks to begin with in back-to-back years or whatever it was. So that's where I'm at. Fletcher Cox is a problem for this defense, and he's the greatest thing about this defensive line right now.
Well, he's supposed to be, but that's the problem with this identity crisis. If you ask Jonathan Gannon if he had started a band, what kind of band is he? And he's like, well, we're a bluegrass, R&B, country, rock, post-metal fusion. And you're just like, what the fuck is that? You know what I mean? Like, you've got to be primarily one thing and secondarily another. Like, yeah. And that's the problem, I think, with all these defensive linemen, and where Fletcher Cox is at the core of this is, okay, if you're going to have these guys in a lot of situations, we're going to be grappling and fighting at the line of scrimmage and trying to create lanes for the linebackers to make tackles. That's one thing. If we are attacking his defensive linemen and going after and we're making the tackles, the linebackers help us clean it up. That is another thing. So they're trying to do both constantly. You're changing your style, your mentality constantly. And for Fletcher Cox, who last year pretty publicly well stated that he did not like Jonathan Gannon, could have gotten traded to the Browns, all these different things. He is out there on the field. And by the way, I didn't think his line was any good when he was out there on Sunday. I mean, him and Hargrave sucked on Sunday. I'm a massive Hargrave guy. He sucked on Sunday.
Can check the box off why they didn't extend his contract in the offseason. That was the first thing I thought of rewatching that. I go, okay, there's something wrong with him physically, and we just don't know a lot about that. Or like, he did miss time. So he did miss time in camp, and that's what I was thinking watching back. I'm going, maybe he's not 100%, and it just didn't work out. Probably the case.
But the backups were better. I mean, they just, like, Milton Williams was really good in that game. All things considered, he was one of the few guys that was constantly, and him and Jordan Davis together as a tandem were making a lot of shit happen and stopping the run. So everybody wants to make it about Jordan Davis because he's the first-round pick, and he didn't get as many snaps as people expected. I'm not surprised he only got 22 snaps. I mean, this is what we all thought months ago. So I'm not necessarily shocked about it, but those guys played a lot better than Hargrave and Cox. And you just start to look around and go like, all right, what the hell is going on here? Marlon Tuapolatu got a lot of snaps.
Outsnapped him.
And he was playing a lot of time, and you're going, okay, what's going on here? So it's weird because that guy who nobody was talking about or interested in all offseason, suddenly he's playing a ton of snaps out there, and he was the main guy paired with Reddick. I don't know if you noticed that, but he was the main guy that was playing the defensive end spot next to Reddick when Reddick would go line up wide and be a pass rusher. I was like, what the hell is going on here?
Probably explains some of my my scratch head stuff when watching the pass rush.
It just looked like a lot of times I saw those two together, and it was just weird to me.
And
so
I'm glad you brought that up, because that only makes me feel really solid about where Fletcher Cox's mentality is. Like, if that's the only guy that you can pair up next to him and feel comfortable about what you can execute, I'm going to keep arriving at the same answer. You know, like you're catering this thing to Fletcher Cox and maybe to a point now Brandon Graham. You know, like, I know it seems silly, and yes, Derek Barnett, if he didn't know by now, like, it tore his ACL, so it's a season-ending injury, and I wonder is that going to at least remove the rotation of that? Like, can we get serious now, right? Like, was Derek Barnett even going to be effective on the field? And I'm not trying to kick a man while he's down, because I actually feel terrible. Like, man, first game of the freaking season, you can't even like warrant that next year contract or whatever. But you get what I'm trying to say here. Like, I think they have to be disrupted to come up with a solution so they go away from this stuff. You know, otherwise you're going to see this for the next 3 or 4 weeks.
We very well could, and that's a dangerous place to be, because, I mean, we'll get more into Minnesota on Thursday, but Minnesota looks pretty fucking good right now, so there's going to be a lot to talk about with that going into the matchup. So thinking about all of this, where it's going to go with the defense, like what we talked about going into this and what you were excited about was the idea of this is pressure coming from everywhere, all these different guys all over the place. Who is it going to be? And, like, in the few occasions they blitzed, it did work. Didn't do it enough. So if you've got all these defensive linemen, you like his pass rushers, you're cycling all these guys in and out, and you really can go, at the time, Sweat, Barnett, BG, Reddick, Cox, Williams, Hargrave, like all these different guys, and that's not even mentioning linebackers and whatever. The corner blitz was really successful. Why not send 5 all the time? Like, why not be in this 3-4 and have these outside guys, and Sweat is one of your edges, and we've seen him do it where he's standing up and lining up in the dirt. He can do both, and Reddick is standing up all the time. Why not send 5 all the time with your defensive lineman? It's the strongest unit you have on your defense. You might as well lean into it and play consistently more in that field. And if you need to switch it up because a certain matchup in a given week is dictating that, all right, maybe you should play more 4-3 because of this and that with scheme, fine. But They did both all the time, and so they weren't doing anything.
Yeah, and you're not wrong. I completely agree. That's what I mean. Like, how it's trying to. If Jonathan Gannon has such a complicated system in terms of placement or where people need to be, then I think that does solely rely on the DC. Like, stop making your defense so goddamn complicated then. Like, just simplify until, like, you get to a point where you don't have to deal with a brick wall like Fletcher Cox or whatever it is. It just seems like you're fighting against something that you want to stay as a coach. Like, it's a fine, like, no, we're going to do this. I don't care what my $14 million starting offensive or defensive line think. Like, I'm just going to keep doing it because this is the way I want it to be done, and I don't want to do it a different way. You know, so I think that's really the crux of where it's at. And I wonder, like, will Jonathan Gannon lose his ego enough to do exactly what you said? And I don't think so. I don't think there's a lane to simplify or to just say, screw it, we're doing this for right now.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird, too, thinking about the Fletcher Cox problem, right? Because we knew he had all those issues last year. And they did cater the defense to Fletcher Cox. Then the offseason hits. They re-signed him.
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know.
I mean, it's like he must have just this was just the only place that was going to give him enough money and decided to stay. But if you're going to cater the defense to him, then why? Like, you had the leverage. You know what I mean? It's all a little weird.
I feel like it's still a slight Zach Ertz situation. It might just not be as loud. You know, like, Fletch will stay here for $14 million and not say a bad word in the media, right? But if there's an opportunity that arises where you can get something, it needs to stay around and look pretty, right?
Okay, so here's a fun idea. Let's revisit last year again, where we talked about Fletcher Cox getting traded to Cleveland.
Yeah.
Maybe he does get traded at the deadline. And if you can trade a guy like Fletcher Cox at the deadline for somebody of substantial value, plus you've got $9 million in cap space, you really can get whoever the hell you want.
Yep.
So
you can, and by the way, I would still stick in the NFC West if I was a betting person right now. Like, someone in the NFC West is going to get baited into taking Fletcher
NFC
Cox.
or AFC?
AFC West. I'm so sorry.
Okay, yeah.
AFC West, somebody's got to keep calling. Somebody. The Denver Broncos.
I was going to say Denver.
Yeah.
That seems like a Denver.
After that shit show the other night, my goodness.
We'll have a
goodness.
bonus segment about that on Thursday. After I'm waiting for Russell Wilson to speak a couple of times this week. So
you see that suit he has?
Jesus.
Yeah.
Going to prom?
Yeah. Practicing high fives, like all the
Practicing high fives was so funny.
Thank God he's not here.
Yes, thank God. That passing chart from last
Everything
night.
would have been great. Everything would have been great if he was here. But anyway.
Just want to remind everybody that Jalen Hurts had a better week one than Russell Wilson. Okay, great. Fantastic. I want to remind you some other things, too. There is some other interesting things with the defense I think we can get into for sure. But the most interesting thing is this can that is right in my hands here. And if you're watching on YouTube, you're going to see the glitz and glamour of the Bury It Alive seltzer that I have in my hands. But, folks, this is like a chrome can full of death. And when I say full of death, I mean the beautiful, most refreshing water from the Alps that has been carbonated with a little bit of agave and some wonderful berry flavor in there. It is just 20 calories per can. So it's not like it's just going to fatten you up, and it's not going to be like the OG Liquid Death cans that are just flat water to keep you hydrated and make you look tough when you don't want to drink any beers in Detroit. That's for sure.
We had a lot.
Sometimes you just hit your peak and you need a little refresher, and that's what Liquid Death does. It murders your thirst. That dry sensation that you have in your throat all the time when you're just partying hard. People are trying to pass you cigarettes. There's smoke all over the place. You don't know who's going to show up, and you just want something that just cleanses your palate. It's right here, and it's the best thing that you can do for the environment as well if you're using that single-use stuff all the time. So liquiddeath.com/Bell. As I said before, you can get every order that you purchase shipped to you for free by using that link right there every time. And like if you're even in the subscription. So if you're a subscriber and want to get it sent to you every month, bang, same thing applies. So let us know what you think of any of the new flavors that you have tried. I know that everybody's kind of keeping tabs on where it's popping up. Apparently, Kroger's is a place where you can go get it. And, of course, 7-Eleven hooked us up on the way from, Ford Field very drunkenly on our way back to our place as well. Vince Quinn, we have gone through a big identity crisis with the defense. And I feel like it's starting to bubble that way with the offense. Again, this is something I think we both agree on. There is no really offensive identity crisis.
No.
But I do feel we need to talk about that. Oh, man,
I heard
that was a
maybe.
Taylor. Go ahead.
Yeah, what do you mean?
Well, we were at the game, and I feel like off the top of my head, there was 3 Devontae calls that were not thrown his way.
Interesting. You think it was like on the primary target, and well, to Taylor Gradaz's credit, if you've been paying attention, I mean, he did say one of the in a worst thing projection, like A.J. Brown could completely neutralize Devontae, and so far 1 of 1 or 1 of 18. Excuse me. We can check that up. Do you think that's an issue?
At first, I did rewatching the game. No, he got like 4 or 5 targets in the game, which is okay. I mean, for a number 2 wide receiver, though, it's okay.
Yeah,
he dropped a couple. Jalen threw him a bad one. There was another one where he caught it and had a couple of yards, and then it got called off due to a penalty. So
holding.
Yeah, so like he got involved a little bit. They had, and especially early, they were trying to get him the ball early. So they literally planned all week to get him involved in the offense. It just didn't work out. And then AJ was just, I mean, the guy was wide open or just dominating people. And he set a franchise record and a career record for the half. You know what I mean? Like, I just can't get mad about it. But thinking about the offensive identity and figuring all this out, here's what I noticed the most is for all the times where plays broke down, Jalen did a great job, right? He's running around. He's getting 12, 15 yards. I mean, he was a fucking monster on the ground, and he won that game. But the whole reason that happened was because they don't have any quick release shit. You know what I mean? There's not enough of that in the playbook. They tried a couple of quick screens to A.J. Brown. I thought some were a good idea. I thought some really weren't. And outside of that, they just didn't seem to have enough stuff built into place where, like, all right, Detroit's sending 7 guys, get the ball out. But it's all this like, all right, we got to do the RPOs, and we're going to do play action, and all that stuff takes time rather than just like snap, fire. I don't see that in the playbook yet. It's a lot of like 7, 10, 15-yard plays, which are nice and got them the win, but you got to figure out what to do when you're getting blitzed all the time because better teams aren't going to let Jalen run for like 100 yards.
Right.
It's just not going to happen.
And, they'll probably contain him a little better, and I still don't know why Detroit didn't put at least like a spy on for a series or something like that, but I don't think that's an offensive problem. I think that's a Jalen problem, and that's something that is going to have to continue to evolve. I completely agree, and I would say it's more on Jalen, even in an RPO situation or even just a simple, play action from shotgun, is to recognize that the blitz is coming on. And if you know that, any good quarterback is going to immediately go, I'm not going to RPO here. I'm going to just stand back. I'm going to accept the rush if it's there, and I'm going to throw a slant to AJ. And the other part of that is, too, you've said this for fucking months, middle of the field, right? So now you're asking a guy who's not comfortable in the middle of the field to now throw it and make a decision, which, again, according to all Eagles Twitter, he's not the greatest at or whatever, but I think that's just a timing thing, an evolving thing. So the batted down balls, the all that, like there is no quick release repertoire for Jalen Hurts right now. That, I think, is an offensive problem, an offensive limitation, right? So like,
and a big one.
That I completely agree with. I just don't think that's on the coaching staff, more or less. I do think that is going to be the ongoing debate from it's who's responsible for what, right? I am not happy with the flow of this offense, but that's where it pretty much stops. I think it has all the working parts. It has an identity from the jump of the season. It knows it wants to be a throwing team. We kind of debated what kind of throwing team that was on the postgame while we're going around Ford Field, so feel free to go back and jump into that one. But, it has a direction. All 3 running backs scored touchdowns. Fantastic. That's what it wants to be. It wants to keep fresh legs. It wants Jalen to do the majority of the work. It wants AJ to do the majority of the work. If Dallas needs to be targeted more, absolutely. I think just everything that we're talking about in terms of usage is literally what you said. Detroit played them a certain way, and I don't know what everybody's problem with is if you're going to continue to leave A.J. Brown with single coverage. That means you don't trust the quarterback, and that's a good thing for the NFL to see. Devontae will get more involved the more A.J. is double covered. There will be more exotic coverages, we'll wait till Thursday, but I'm a little nervous about for the Vikings and stuff like that. I don't think it has an identity crisis whatsoever.
No, they're at a starting point for all of this, and they've got to develop it. Jalen was good enough to get him through that game because the Lions couldn't contain him with his legs, and he was able to beat him routinely. But also, to your point, like Dallas Goedert was great in that game.
Fantastic.
It's great. I mean, he was absolutely killer in the moments where he used him. He'd get like 15 yards after the catch, and thinking about where this team is going too. If they become a yards after the catch football team, they could be really fucking scary good. A.J. Brown, monster after the catch. Dallas Goedert, monster after the catch. In those moments, like, Miles was incredible.
Really good. Like, for
what?
I know.
For a person that absolutely destroyed that man in the offseason. Phenomenal start to the season. Can't say anything different. And I went back and checked the tape fucking 4 times to make sure my eyes weren't lying to me. There are still some cleanup things in there, but it would really be nitpicky of me to criticize Miles Sanders. So shout out to everybody that's keeping me in check, and
including Jordan Weaver,
who
joined us in Detroit
Shout
in a
out,
Miles
buddy.
Sanders jersey. We thought he was crazy for doing it, but Miles scored, and also Barney, who will now host with us on Sunday or Monday. Excuse me, he'll be on the Monday live stream because he called the Sanders touchdown, and we did not believe him
on the drive.
Yes.
Like in the Discord, we're sitting there in the stadium, and he's like, "All right, Miles is going to score, and you got to let me host this show." I'm like, "Yeah, no problem."
Yeah, it was like, you're fucking crazy, Barney. Yeah, you can host the show. Go ahead.
Although I'm just saying, if he can score 1, why couldn't he score all 3?
I like that.
and shout out to the text line too, by the way, especially on game day. Really fun chatting with you and getting everybody's scores and throwing pictures out there to, where we're tailgating and stuff like that. So highly recommend you getting to know us through there too. 215-509-5833. Not only that, it's very important to let you guys know if you're coming to one of these things. It's just easier to communicate with you and let you know where we're at, where the party's at, or all that stuff. So
Yeah. So, again, going back to it a little bit, it's the idea that all these guys, yards after the catch, the ability in open space. Like, Miles had so much contact in that game and fought through it and got a bunch of yards. So, if it's AJ, Devontae, Quez, Pascal, whatever, got it. Like, they're just all these guys are set up in situations to get yards after the catch, pick routes and whatever. That could be a really fun place to be. Look, I spent all of last year yelling about slants. Did I not?
Yes.
I yell about slants all the fucking time during the season. I saw a few. Like, that is encouraging. That's a good place to be early. All the play action shit. It's like, this is what the Titans did to make A.J. Brown awesome, and they're starting to do that already.
Yep.
And for that being the engine of the offense, good enough. Week 1, good enough.
Yeah, because isn't that you wanted to know the identity? They've been working together all offseason to get this chemistry and timing down. Then it works the very first week, and we're sitting here going, I don't know. That was the point of this. That was the point of all of this. Shut up. They'll get there.
It was the single biggest difference in the game is Jalen Hurts' legs and A.J. Brown's inability to be covered. He just can't. He is allergic to coverage.
Yeah.
So for those two things that won them the football game, it is okay. It's okay to be enjoying this a little bit, even with all the problems. Like this, part of it's high expectations, and I've set them screaming 15-2 the last couple weeks. But they did win the game, and it's the first game of the season, and the Detroit crowd was as loud as I've ever heard.
Fucking loud.
Yeah, crazy fucking loud.
My ears are still kind of ringing from it, and we're recording this on Tuesday night. It was loud.
Yeah, that was as pumped up as they're going to be. They have this whole offseason. They get Hutchinson. He's a local guy. They get Jamison Williams. He's a big deal. Everybody's
DeAndre Swift.
Yeah, everybody's all hyped up for Swift and what he's going to do this season. Their offensive line is really good and played their asses off in that game, too. All these things came together. The fans were psyched as shit. It was a sold-out building. There were a lot of Lions fans in there. There were a lot of Eagles fans in there, too. But, man, I mean, it was so loud in there, and they were so revved up, and they just gave you a great game. So, to get through that, a really good shot from the Lions – again, the talent gap is there, and it was Hurts and A.J. were the two guys that you singularly point to as the reason they won.
Yeah, and it's not their fault that they lost the lead. So, if the defense just has one more turnaround, or if, Covey breaks one or whatever it is, then it helps out the offense, and we're probably not so focused on those critical moments. And when you had to go get another score, they did. Good, and you're not going to hit every freaking drive. So, I'm right there with you, man. I'm in low panic mode about that, and very low panic mode about how awesome that tailgate on Monday night is going to be. Oh, my God, I can't wait for this. And we've got some exciting news, too, because if you don't know by now, whether you're flying in or whether you are just going to hang out with us locally, hang for the watch party at the Gatehouse at the Navy Yard, because that's what we're doing afterwards. We're just going to hang out and stay there. You can walk right to the link if you want to. It's 10 minutes away. But for the very first tailgate, we wanted to make sure that everyone that watches us, that listens to us, is taken care of. So Vince from Philly Sports Trips wants to do that as well, and that's why we've partnered with him, because he just gets it. So right now, you can use the promo code Washington Crew. And I know that sounds funky because, well, what if I'm not going to Washington? No problem. We're giving you the promo code of everyone that's coming on the Washington trip with us, because if you are, by the way, signed up, that promo code will work for you as well. And you're going to get $20 off an $85 all-inclusive ticket. And when I say all-inclusive, I mean all-inclusive, baby. Not for Monday night, but moving forward, there will be free parking in South Philadelphia to go watch a game and to go hang out and tailgate. So keep that in the back of your mind for October 2nd.
And can you repeat that, please?
Free parking.
Like my car?
Your car. 10-minute walk to Lincoln Financial Field. So I'm just going to say this. Even if you are back and forth about the tailgate, there's free parking. Again, not this coming Monday night. There will not be free parking this Monday night, but every tailgate moving forward, there will be.
Sundays, yes.
On Sundays, yes. Every Sunday, free parking. Amazing. Booze, mimosas, Bloody Marys. So many different craft beers coming in and out on every different tailgate, and we're going to rotate that. It's going to be amazing Monday night. There's so many people that have told me they're coming in for it. They need a place to go, and I hate Xfinity. Why does everyone keep going to Xfinity? It is the worst place on earth. They serve nothing but shit and trash, and you got to reserve a table, and it's like, you got to pay like $90 before you even walk into the door. So what I'm saying is free parking with this promo code of Washington Crew. Washington Crew. An $85 ticket becomes a $65 ticket. It includes everything for 3.5 hours, and then there's stuff at the watch party afterwards. Like, I am so jacked to work with everybody on this tailgate this year and see what's going on beyond. But please, PhillySportsTrips.com, and go check out the tailgate tab. Use the promo code Washington Crew. $85 becomes $65. Can't beat that. You really cannot beat that.
No, it's incredible.
So I'm excited for that, and I'm excited that the division is not good at all. And we learned that this weekend, so that's the last thing I wanted to throw in there. Dallas, all those Cowboys fans that were giving us shit literally 2.5 weeks ago are now turning on Dak Prescott and Jerry Jones as like this was a huge mistake. We should not have paid Dak Prescott. In a matter of weeks of going, this team is going to smoke the Eagles. Minutes. In mere minutes. Dallas Cowboys fans are flipping themselves to, I told you this was going to happen, and fuck you, Dak Prescott, for taking all that money. And he's only going to be out 4 weeks. So your thoughts?
Well, that's what they say.
4 to 8.
Yeah, exactly. And you're gonna hype on the low line because you're just going to get people to hang in there after week 1. But they're fucked, man. It's over. Like the Mike McCarthy coach to get fired, betting lines like Willie or won't he? I'd put some cash on that right now. That man is done. That turkey is cooked. They're a bad team anyway. Like they've always been an incredibly top heavy team. They lost some talent off of the top. Now they're injured at quarterback for a couple of weeks. It's not going to happen. They lost Connor McGovern, the fullback, turned starting guard, turned fullback still. I don't know what the fuck. He's gone. He's out for a little while. So, like, they're injured like crazy. They're not that good to begin with. Washington almost lost to Jacksonville, and the Giants barely beat Tennessee.
My New York Giants.
Your New York Giants barely beat Tennessee, who I've said all offseason, Tennessee sucks. That was one of the worst 1 seeds I've ever seen in my life last year.
You know who doesn't suck real quick?
Sure.
Kyle Phillips. Shout out J Cant for every fantasy advice from like March or April on to say that's the guy not Traylon Burks. Shout out to you. We saw that a little bit too. Made me feel good about AJ Brown as well.
Yeah, there's literally a Kyle Phillips channel in the Discord. So if you have not been in the Discord, it's literally J Cant in the Discord just talking
61,
shit.
baby. I'll take it.
Yeah, he nailed it for a 5th round rookie in his debut. That was pretty badass. So, yeah, shout out to him.
I'm still a little worried about the Giants, to be honest with you. I've gone back and forth with this all offseason. I was like, all right, they're going to be better than everybody thought. They didn't look terrible. The Brian Daboll's, like, his cojones are just enough to be different than Joe Judge to get you into maybe a wild card, I think.
I think Daboll's going to be a good coach.
Saquon looked really fucking good.
He did. And they've put work into the offensive line that's starting to come together.
Three rookies started, and it was completely different. So I'm going, shit.
Well, yeah, because
I'm kind of back to shit mode again.
They got some guys who can play, but ultimately Daniel Jones sucks. Their wide receiver game's a problem. Like
he's great on the road. Like we have to point that out. He is great on the road. I don't know what it is, but
New York hates him, right? Like,
yeah, he's probably like everybody looks around. They're like, "Wait, are you Eli Manning?" And he's like, "No, I'm not Eli." And it just drives him nuts.
That was my father. How dare you?
Yeah. So I think that just gets in his head. But he's not that good. Like Kadarius Toney played, I think, 7 snaps for some reason, even though he's actually good when he plays. They just he's got whatever the hell going on.
Got to get him out of that uniform.
Yeah, he's a complete mess up there. So like they're just not a good team. And again, Tennessee's not a good team either. So they got a week 1 win. It's whatever. I think their ceiling is like 7 wins.
Okay, it would be almost as good as last year, better than last year, right? They stuck there at 4.
Yeah, somewhere in that ballpark. Because I mean, they were one of the top picks, but also,
Yeah.
I mean, the Eagles are going to have 15, so
Well,
they're
there you
going
go.
to
Yeah.
double them, so that's fine.
And then I actually have not rewatched the Jags-Washington game at all, but all I needed to see was that stat line: 26 for 41, 2 picks, 4 interceptions. Like, right? Is that about right for Carson Wentz's stat line?
I didn't have his exact stat line on me, but I know he threw a couple of picks, and some of them were pretty ugly, like going to defensive linemen on a screen, like those
Classic.
kinds of things. Yeah, it's
4 and 2.
4 touchdowns, 2 picks.
Yeah.
So
But it was against Jacksonville. It was a nail biter. Like that team sucks.
I felt that same way. Like that was his Super Bowl because it was Doug, and he just wanted to. Why didn't you stick up for me, bro? Game or whatever it is. But yeah, man. I mean, if we are talking about any one of these teams creeping up to the Eagles in terms of division leaders, talent, they've turned it around. This team is nowhere as where we thought it was going to be, or as good as we thought it was going to be. If that conversation happens in like 7 weeks, that's when I'd be worried. But other than that, I'm good.
Yeah, there's nothing to worry about right now. That's not my biggest concern. It's all just in-house and like how can they shape themselves up to be an actual Super Bowl contender?
Yep.
Because the talent's there. It's just putting it together.
I just got a feeling that that's going to keep sticking together. Like all this shit that we're talking about, all this stuff with the team chemistry seems pretty good. Obviously, that goes away with losses. So, you know, it's not the biggest thing in the world. It's just like everybody's on the same page. And I got to shout out Jalen one more time. Did you see that post-game locker room speech?
No, I didn't see that.
That's a fucking leader. If you haven't seen that already, go to the Philadelphia Eagles social. It's on there somewhere. Just a really good post-game speech. It'll be like, hey, we know that shit wasn't good enough. We know that shit wasn't good, but that's what we got to do. We got to wake up and we got to accept the new challenge and push ourselves and do that. It's just like, yeah, that sounds like a guy that just comes out and it flows, unlike Carson Wentz's dumbass that like has to have a script in front of him to know what to say in front of the locker room. So check that out. Check out Vince Quinn's beautiful face trying to beat this guy, a true athlete, in a race. It's on YouTube right now.
Nothing athletic about anything in that video.
No,
It is not an athletic piece.
The
no.
most athletic thing was the woman stretching as they're getting ready.
That is very true. The 4 people on the track that were going around were doing it right. I raced in jeans and Spicoli style Vans, and I'll just leave it at that. That's the kind of athletic prowess that you have going on.
Yeah, I was wearing these, some flat Nikes. So
Flat Nikes?
Yeah, there's no grip on these whatsoever. I've been wearing them every day for a year. So I was wearing those, some khaki shorts.
Yeah.
I was fresh off of every liquor in the book the night before.
Yeah, and I would say Vince was more banged up than I was. Is that fair? Definitely partied a
Well,
little harder?
definitely Sunday morning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was
The man had the puffiest eyes I've ever seen.
I was pretty trashed. So
And it was so enjoyable. Thank you, Detroit, and thank you to everybody that watched our post-game show on YouTube as well. If you haven't checked that out, I know podcast listeners, you've already heard the show, but like, shout out to Taylor Cordatis for the camera work, the editing. Like, it was really cool to do a post-game show walking around Ford Field. So that's something that we're excited to keep continuing to do. And thank you again for subscribing, listening, and doing all the things. And, jump in the Discord. Let's have some fun. BellTheBirdmen.com for Taylor Cordatis. That is Vince Quinn. I'm John Barchard, and we'll see you real soon.